Hey, back again. Going to talk a little bit more about exposure basics. We learned a little bit about shutter speed, a little bit about aperture, and when I get to the board in one of the next videos, I'm going to line this out for you. Hopefully you'll get a better understanding. But the way things work is that the quality and quantity of light that comes through the lens in any scene that we may want to photograph is controlled by, of course, the two things, the shutter speed as well as the aperture. And when we expose an image, uh, we want to make choices depending upon the image that we're taking a photo of. If we want a great deal of depth of field, we will have to use an aperture, which is a smaller pinhole, but a larger number, like f16, f22. If we are looking at reducing our depth of field, a larger aperture and much bigger hole, like you saw in one of these images here, right? Um, those will change the quality of the picture, as well as the shutter speed, how fast that shutter opens and closes. Of course, when it opens and closes that 1 second, everything in front of that camera that's moving in that 1 second, the camera will record. If we photograph something at 1/1000th of a second, the shutter is opening and closing very quickly and will stop most motion. Depends, of course, in our proximity, whether the object is coming toward us or going across the picture plane in front of us. And certainly, chapter 6 in your book, Exposure Basics, will cover some of these ideas behind aperture and shutter speed, and it's something that I encourage you to look into. Chapter 6 is of course, a very important chapter to understand. Now, these two things fit together with the third component, which is ISO rating. And an ISO rating is an international standard organization that uh, sets parameters to the quality of, in one time, a piece of film, and of course the rating on a CCD, how sensitive to light that is. And we've heard of fast film in the past, or slow film, and film that we have used to shoot outdoors compared to indoors. Now, ISO ratings in the past range anywhere from ISO rating of 25, which was a very slow film, but also a very quality film, up to 1600 or 3200 ISO. And in today's digital cameras, those ISO ratings still stay the same, anywhere between 25, possibly on some cameras. I know that my Canon starts at 100 ISO and goes up to 1600 ISO and has an expansion packet within the menu. Uh, so when we use these ISOs, we make choices because of the quality of imagery as well as the setting in which we're photographing. If we're photographing in a very dark or dimly lit area, a higher ISO rating like 800 or 1600 means that it will be less exposure to less light to expose that CCD. If we shoot at 100 ISO or 200 ISO, it's going to take more exposure to expose the CCD properly and get a good image, but we're going to have a higher quality image. Now, in film in the past, if we used 1600 ISO film, we would have a very grainy quality. And today in the digital world, we call it noise. And this noise at 1600 ISO creates kind of a clumping of colors, and sometimes we have little pieces of noise that aren't even in the photograph. And this gives a grainier effect to the image. So we give and take a little bit. Of course, we can shoot in low light situations, but we have a grainier image. And we choose those ISO ratings depending upon if we're trying to stop motion, if it is a low light situation, if we're trying to do something creative with a different ISO rating. Now, in the past, typically people bought film. If they were shooting outdoors, they would shoot at 100 ISO film. If they were shooting indoors, they might get 400 ISO film, and it would give them 2 stops more latitude to play around with this. Now, the next step is bringing ISOs and shutter speeds and apertures together to create the image that we want. And we'll be talking more about that in upcoming videos.